I will tell you, just for me, and I don't want this to happen, but I will tell you, from me personally, if Hillary Clinton gets in, I'm ready for a revolution because we can't have her in.
Yeah, you don't say
But
that.
I'm just saying it. No, I'm like Trump. Am I do I not speak for people here? Am I not saying the truth, guys? Come on.
Yeah, there's a revolution coming on November the 8th. I promise you.
I think people are going to rise up because we're tired of taking it.
Folks,
we're tired of being deplorable. We want to be thought as Americans instead of just her stepping stone. Yes. So yes, people will probably rise up.
What does that mean? We saw one candidate stand up and say,
we will defend ourselves and we will make sure that the laws that need to be instated in this country are instated instead of just forgotten about.
When they bullied him, when they told him to back down, you know what he said?
Take it as it is, but
I'm never backing
you're in the
down.
South.
I am never
We're all
stopping this
Second
fight.
Amendment
I want my
pros.
country back.
We want our country back, like he just said.
Imagine
and she's not going to give it to us.
Joining me now, former Nixon White House counsel John Dean, author of The Nixon Defense, What He Knew and When He Knew It, and a man who has experienced some of the most sort of high-stress, high-stakes tests of American institutions of democracy. Given that experience, what's going through your head as you're watching Trump increasingly make this case to lay the groundwork for a story, should he lose, of how that loss is illegitimate?
Well, I see a lot of similarities between Nixon and Trump. They're both authoritarian personalities. The thing is that Trump is actually at the extreme end of that. He's taken it much further than Nixon. In fact, he makes Nixon something of a choir boy. I don't know of Nixon ever being a sexual predator in his time. But what I see going on is typical of an authoritarian type personality. They can do no wrong. Everybody around them is at fault, excepting themselves. And they will break the system if they have to win at all costs. That's what Nixon, of course, did, trying to win the election. He succeeded. Then he got caught, and he tried to use the system in any way he could to protect himself, but it didn't work. And when the final lie got told and was put to him, he actually went willingly. He said, it's up, and he walked away from it, which might have been one of his grander moments because he had the army on his side.
That's right. This is the key to me because, if you look at how democratic institutions function, they function essentially on norms of conduct. And ultimately, when he was confronted by Barry Goldwater, among others, and sort of famously after the Midnight Massacre, and they said, "You've got to go," he didn't order the Justice Department to arrest them or order the military to go into a state of emergency, which is what could have happened and happens in places around the world all the time. This question of what Trump does should he lose without the power of the presidency in terms of eating at that institutional legitimacy.
Well, Chris, what he really is, he's sort of the product of what's been going on in the GOP for a number of years. I've written about it at some length because I find it surprising and somewhat distressing, is they're gaming the system. Democracy is fragile, and it does base itself on people performing in a normal, consistent way and not trying to defeat the system by misbehaving. So the fact that he's willing to push it this far and try to actually, I think he's trying to win the election by offending as many voters, Democratic voters, as he can, so they'll be so exhausted they don't even want to show up at the polls. And then his supporters will come out because they will stay with him till the end. But I think we're seeing a very unpleasant bit of behavior here. I find it very disquieting. It's the first election in my adult life, and I've seen a lot of them now, that I really felt uneasy. I knew Senator Goldwater. He was a personal friend. I wasn't worried about him in '64 of doing something like starting a nuclear war. That just wasn't him. In fact, as he said to many people, he said, I wouldn't vote for myself given the portrait of who I was being portrayed as in the media. That isn't the case here with Trump. He is revealing himself and not being falsely portrayed by the media.